Thank you very much for, first of all, hosting such a great conference in Serbia on a sector that obviously we feel is very important. And thank you to the sponsors and organizers for giving us some time to talk about Mundoro and how we view Serbia and what we're doing here. So just to start off with a bit of an overview. Although we came to Serbia in 2011, which was just 2 years ago, we've been around as a company since the 1990s. And the main area where we started was in China. We got there in the early or late 1990s. We got into an arrangement with the government where we explored and developed a 9.2 million ounce resource. And then we sold the supermajority of that project back to the Chinese government, to China National Gold, which is their largest gold producer. And we've expanded out of the country and into new regions. And I think this is important in our industry because resources in established jurisdictions are getting more difficult to find. And junior companies like Mundoro are usually on the front wave of going into new jurisdictions, testing the waters and seeing if really exploration is possible and ultimately if development is possible. And that's probably the most important thing. And really, if you can establish that development is possible in a country, that's where you really get big investment. Exploration certainly does make an investment in the beginning of the process, but development is really, as a country, where you want to be focused. So as a junior company, we've expanded into two jurisdictions, and that is Mexico, which I will not be talking about here today, and the Tethyan Belt. And it's pretty obvious why we're in the Tethyan Belt. And obviously everybody knows this slide, and I don't need to convince anyone that there's great potential in the western portion of it. But I think it's really important to compare that to other places in the world, which many speakers this morning have been doing. And that is, I think, brings the whole context of what we're talking about in terms of Serbia as a competitor for those investment dollars from exploration companies and from development companies and mining companies. So this is a very quick snapshot of the western portion of the Tethyan Belt. It's about 2,000 light kilometers going across from Romania through Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. And then comparing that same amount of kilometers in the Maricunga Belt in South America between northern Chile and southern Peru. Now, why have I done this? This is important because there's two things that make it possible to see the amount of red dots that we see on the right-hand side of the screen. So in the Maricunga Belt, just on this portion of it, there are over 1,000 copper gold projects. And that's just copper gold. We're not talking any other commodities because we didn't do that search, and there's certainly more. If you look on the left-hand side of the slide, in the Tethyan Belt, and only the western portion, there's about 175 copper gold projects. Does that mean that this belt is not prolific or that this belt can't make any more discoveries? We think obviously not the case, as we are here. But what makes it possible for there to be over 1,000 projects being explored, developed, and mined in this Maricunga Belt versus in the western portion of the belt? And that's two things. Obviously, you need geology, which we believe the western portion of the Tethyan Belt has. But second, you need laws. You need good established laws that demonstrate, not only say in writing, but clearly demonstrate that if you come and you invest, that you will be able to get to the finish line of production. And that's paramount. So I think what I'm trying to illustrate here with this slide is to show that Serbia has the potential to have a lot more investment. You've already got the geology, as Sean has clearly demonstrated. What you need now is a well-established law that demonstrates that you can get from exploration to development to production in a smooth timeline without interruption and discretion of, let's call it, badly timed decisions. So how does that look in terms of the mining law? Well, we've just put up a few jurisdictions here. There's certainly a lot more comparison. And actually, ENY has done a great study, and there's a local ENY office here in Serbia, in Belgrade, where they compare different jurisdictions in terms of how they develop their tax regime. So I'm going to start with just a few that Mundoro has been exposed to, and that is Serbia, Bulgaria, Mexico and Ontario, which is arguably one of our best provinces in Canada. Thank you. So there's two key takeaway points from this slide, because there's a lot of information here. One is that if you have a higher corporate tax rate, you generally have lower royalties or no royalties. If you have a low corporate tax rate, you generally do have some royalties, around 2 to 3% to possibly 5%. But what does that mean in terms of other taxes for the government? If you have a established mining operation, really you have much more than just corporate royalties or corporate taxes and royalties. You also have payroll taxes, which are very important. You have import taxes, VATs, and many other forms. So what I'm showing here is pretty much only half the picture. And if you look at ultimately what that means in terms of what the miners pay versus what the government takes in, on average in a lot of jurisdictions, that's around 50%. So anybody who comes and invests and operates in Serbia, about 50% of what they make is ultimately going to go back to the country, and then that can be reinvested. So the message that I want to bring across is that the laws are working here in terms of what you currently have. We certainly hope that they don't change significantly, and that if you genuinely want more investment, I think the best way to start is by securing, finalizing with no further revisions your mining law. In terms of where we are in Serbia and Bulgaria, obviously we're in the Timok complex, which is right here. We came here in 2011 and did a lot of research. We talked to various governments as well to do research on the jurisdiction. We also went to Bulgaria. We also went to Romania and Macedonia. And as a company, we decided to only invest in Serbia and Bulgaria because we felt that by having taken that leap of faith and creating a new mining law in 2011, that it wouldn't significantly change going forward. So without going into too many details about each of the projects, basically to illustrate here where we are in the belt, just so you know where Mundoro is, we have 10 licenses, and we categorize them very simply into the north, central, and south licenses. In the north, we started with 5, and we relinquished 2 of those licenses, so now we have 3. The one that we are most actively working on is Železnik, which is just north of Majdanpek. In the central area, which is right around the Bor area, here we have 3 licenses, Borsko Jezero, Dubrava, and Topla. There we have done some geophysics, some initial sampling, and basically done some geological interpretation. We've tested it with a few holes, and really of note from that drilling program, as it was the very first one, is that we came across an area that has some nice chalcopyrite and pyrite clasts that clearly demonstrate that there is potential in that area. This is ground that had been around for, obviously, available to any company up to 2011 when we came. And there is potential here for another Novo Okpo style deposit. In the southern licenses, we have 4, which is Sumrakovic, Savinac, Bačevica, and Osnic. And really the important thing to demonstrate here is that, again, these are licenses that were available until 2011. We came in, we staked these, and have done the initial sampling work, some trenching, and came up with some interesting results, demonstrating, a trench of 12 meters with 1 ounce of gold and about 5 ounces of silver, which again demonstrates that even new companies coming to this region can find interesting showings that give potential for more work and more investment into the country. So I'm not going to go over any more of the projects, but I thank you for the opportunity to present, and look forward to hearing more thoughts about the Serbian government's laws. Thank you.